All right, folks, come on and have a seat. The SeattleEVA meeting will begin. All right, folks, come on and sit down. We're starting the meeting. We can chat afterwards. Welcome to the July SeattleEVA meeting, everybody. Thank you for showing up. It's a nice day. We've had a lot of good car shows. Got some cool things to go over with you tonight. So we usually start off the meeting and see if anybody is here for the first time, or if you haven't been here in a while, would you stand up and introduce yourself? I see any new faces? I don't know. Have you been here before, sir? Looks like a new face. What's your name, and do you have an electric vehicle? Or?
Yeah, my name is Hugh. I have two. I have a 2014 Model S, and I have a 2022 Mach-E GT.
Oh, nice. All right. So yeah.
And I'm here to see David's
conversion.
legacy.
Cool.
It's your Mach-E, that's the one I want.
Anybody else here for the first time or hasn't been here in a long time? Any other new faces in the back, maybe? No? Nope. All right. Well, if you're not on our SeattleEVA email list, you should join. Go to www.SeattleEVA.org, or you can look up the SeattleEVA Google group with Google and find our Google group that way, but we disseminate information out on that list. And it's been car show season. It seems like we've had a great spring and summer as far as weather, so hopefully that continues. And we had our biggest show of the year. SeattleEVA always, how many cars do we have at Greenwood? 26?
About a block worth.
Yeah, so we're up on Greenwood Avenue. The show always brings out thousands of people and lots of cars. And we'll just go over. Big thanks to Kent Bakke and his whole crew that brought a bunch of really unique vehicles. That was quite the crowd pleaser. And they had fresh coffee. But I was really enthused, and a lot of people I saw were excited about this classic electric vehicle. Completely. Yeah, it really, really is beautiful. And you know, a funny thing about old electric vehicles, or an interesting factoid a lot of people don't know, is that in the early days of the automobile, electric vehicles outnumbered both gas and steam vehicles. And now it's funny to think about, like, even steam vehicles, like that was a thing. But I mean, if you put yourself in the shoes of somebody in the late 1800s, the steam trains is how they were getting across the country, and that was a normal. And there were steam donkeys, buildings and stuff were powered by steam. Tractors ran off of steam.
Boats.
So boats, of course, yeah, huge boats and everything. And
well, you didn't have range anxiety in
yeah.
a steam vehicle.
Well, you were competing with a horse.
But yeah.
We used to have the Stanley came to Greenwood Car Show.
Yes.
I think it is like couldn't move anymore after about maybe 2012 or something last time I saw it.
I had a friend of my dad's growing up that had a Doble steam car, and it took about 3 hours to get it started because you had to light the fire and get the fire going good enough and stuff. So you can see why electric vehicles were popular in the early days compared to that. And then also gasoline, we didn't have the infrastructure that there is today. You would buy gasoline from a pharmacy typically in small little containers. It was not not a normal thing. There weren't fast gas stations everywhere. And then also you think what the cars looked like back then. I mean, they were kind of glorified carriages, so they didn't weigh very much, they didn't go very fast, and that was normal. And they had really thin, low rolling resistance, hard tires, and so the range actually was not that bad, even with the very primitive old lead acid batteries that they had. And many of the same advantages that we have today for electric vehicles were also still a big deal then. No loud noises or fumes, and in particular with the gas and diesel vehicles of the time, people would actually break their wrists and stuff because they didn't have the starter yet. And I believe it was about 1912 Cadillac introduced the electric starter, and so the irony is adding that little electric motor to do the cranking for the internal combustion engine actually made it then finally like, okay, well now it's easy enough that the EVs weren't as popular. And then also Rockefeller was building out Standard Oil and starting to actually put in infrastructure for gasoline, so it made it a lot easier then. But yeah, really cool to see that. Yeah, yeah, once that kicked over. Yeah. So really cool to see that. John Lustmeyer with a Cybertruck towed down the Corbin Sparrow, which is another classic historic EV. We had the Switch electric vehicle there from Green River College, from their electric vehicle training program, and all sorts of cool things. Mark's Model 3 based, what is it, 52 International? 52 International. Yeah. That's going to be a real neat one to see done, and thanks a lot for bringing it also to Mark Yormark that towed it out there with his Model X. That got a lot of attention. Everybody's seeing, a hot rod could be electric too. And we had both a Ford Ranger EV from the 90s carb era EVs and a plug-in hybrid, and the 1997 GM S10E. So that was pretty cool too. Very rare electric factory-built trucks. All right, also we had, I wasn't able to make it to this show, but Grace put on the Father's Day show at Burien. Do you want to say a few things about that, Grace? Or just, Joe, I can show the pictures. I think Paul, you were there as well, right?
Nice hot day, a lot of people.
Yeah, it was, I've done the show before by myself. Mark has done it before too, but we decided to try to get an all-electric club exhibit there. 7 cars, all different, and that was really nice because this is, it's a big show. I mean, a lot of people come. They come from all over. They were lining up at 6 a.m. to get into the show. I know, and it's it's about 8 blocks of downtown, so it's actually quite a few, hundreds of vehicles. So it was really nice to have the electric section there for a change, and we had a lot of interest. People saying, it's about time, and yeah, thank you for coming. I can't remember how many times I got thanked for bringing electric vehicles. Now, I also did get 3 separate people who said, you shouldn't be here, these aren't classic. And then
some of them were.
I pointed to the Corbin, I'm going, yeah, it's kind of classic. Oh, and Mark Schnell's original Roadster from back in 2011, so that's definitely a classic, 15 years old. And that was fun talking about how that car is still running on the same batteries. It's got over 75,000 miles on it. 15 years later, and so people really took that message and said, oh yeah, that's not what we were told, that batteries are going to die after a couple of years, you know. So it was a great experience. It did get a little bit warm. We had some shade behind the cars, so we kind of went back and forth, but talked to a lot of people, and a great opportunity. I hope we can do it again, maybe even a few more cars next year. So if you want to bring your family down for Father's Day, it's a great opportunity.
Lots of good food, strawberry shortcake.
Oh yeah, it's during the Strawberry Festival in Burien, so yes, a lot of food. Cool, thanks.
Thank you. That
The Oregon Country Fair is not like any car show you've ever been to because we're not allowed to show cars. So it's art, it's entertainment, and we have a booth. There's our booth. We got to look like hippies, and I'm working on it. And I've been running this booth for 6 years, 2 years virtually during COVID, and then the last 4 years, but managed to fawn it off on the Emerald Valley EVA, the Eugene group. So they now pay for it and staff it, and all I have to do is show up. But we do put some bicycles out in front, some electric bikes, just as a Pied Piper to get people to stop as they're walking by. But the Oregon Country Fair, mostly it's music and circus acts and crafts and lots of really good food. But here's the circus acts. They have two areas of the fairgrounds, the Energy Park and the Community Village, which are alternative lifestyles, and they've been going on for 58 years. So they're talking about solar panels and solar cookers and everything. That's the Energy Park entrance there. All right, that's all.
Thank you. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's the solar parabolic solar
Cooker,
collector.
yeah, she's cooking
dishes.
stew.
That's neat. Yeah, I've seen some solar ovens and things like that. It's pretty cool. When in the summertime when we get that sun,
We
it's
got
a lot
solar
of power.
showers. Everybody gets naked together. Oh, this
Is
is
this-
This is Roger. Roger brings up two cars, one each year from Arcata, California, that he converted in the 1990s, and that is a Morris Minor taxi.
Ah, nice.
And he displays these cars, even though it's completely against the rules. Nobody stops him, and he just sets his own display up at the front of the fair. So that's the other one is the Volkswagen.
But they're electric, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
they're
What's the
electric.
big effing deal?
Oh, that's the solar trailer. Oregon State University created this as a car charger, but they won't let us use it as a car charger anymore. It powers one of the stages. See, there I am sneaking a charge on my Nissan Leaf. And they repainted it now, so it's orange.
Oh, and I was just wondering about this. Who took over? Is it EVCS or who took over the AeroVitamin station?
This was my very first trip down there, and this is my longest trip in the Leaf because I left from Seattle with 100% and made it to Tumwater.
And
71 miles.
nice. What year is the Leaf?
Well, that was a 2011 Leaf, and this
Okay.
was in 2012.
Ah, okay, this one,
It's 2011.
And there I am on Electric
yeah. Oh,
Avenue
yes.
in
Said
Portland.
we're gonna rock down through Electric Avenue. That one's down in Portland,
Yeah.
there, where they had, I haven't been there. Anybody
It's
been there
still
recently?
there. Almost all of them are broken.
Yeah, because they had like one of each different type of charger. It's very interesting. Cool, thank you. Well, our featured electric vehicle of the night, hopefully, actually, other upcoming events. So next month, we're going to have the SeattleEVA meeting not here, so make sure you note that. We're going to be at, we'll send out the address, but over in Ballard at the Marine Building next to the Baki Coffee Museum. And we have Rivian has a new company that is making electric bicycles, and so they're going to be presenting and bringing a whole bunch of bicycles for people to test out and ride and drive. And it's very fortuitous that there's the bike trail goes right in front of the spot, and then we also have plenty of parking in the fenced-in area. If you bring an electric vehicle, especially a cool one, come early and we'll get you a good spot out in front there. But this will be a potluck, and so we'll send out the information on depending on what your last name is, if you should bring an entree or a dessert. But it'll be a good time. We did it last year, and weather's always nice because it's August, so we'll look forward to seeing you there next month. Coming up this Saturday, the 18th, the Yakima Valley Trolleys are having a little work party day over in Yakima to clean the track on 6th Avenue. I also have an update, and they're having actually a council meeting tonight, so we'll see what comes from that. But it's not particularly great, although the YVT and the city planner have applied for some grants, and one of them the council is voting on tonight whether to go through with it, which is like, well, hey, it's free money, so why wouldn't they? So hopefully that will happen. But so they've got the grant application together to help with the funding for 6th Avenue where they're paving. But until then, and for this summer, since the construction isn't going to start soon, the trolleys want to be running up and down 6th Avenue again, so the community sees them back there and sees that they're using it and everything. But the tracks always, over the winter season, in between the rail and the asphalt, gets a bunch of junk and stuff. So it's rough work, and it'll be hot, so they're going to start really early at 7 a.m. over in Yakima. But if anybody is willing to help, they could use extra hands.
What day?
It's this coming Saturday, the 18th. So this coming Saturday, July 18th. Are there any other events upcoming that people want to share? Yes.
If anybody's interested, August 23rd, Green River College is having a car show, and it'd be pretty fantastic to have a few electric cars out there. I'll have our switch vehicle and possibly another car or two, or a handful, to show off. And so I'll just leave these up here somewhere.
Cool. The Cruising Kent car show. I've actually seen some things about this. So that should be a big car show. This would be a good opportunity. I think there'll be a lot of people coming to it.
And if you guys collectively have a handful of people, I work with the people that are putting it on, and I can definitely ask for a space.
Okay.
So we could all kind of be together. So just let me know if people are interested in hanging out.
Awesome.
And it's open, kind of like Greenwood, not nearly as big, but open to all years, makes, models, motorcycles, cars, things like that.
Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, so speaking, that's a good segue into our featured presenter for the night. Something I think is really exciting, you know, a few of us, Ron and Brian and Kent and Charlie, but some of us out there in the early days, you know, Larry, of course, too, with his S10, you know, you couldn't buy an electric vehicle, so you had to convert one. But the rough thing was the conversion parts that we had to pick from was like forklift motors and industrial motors that were brushed DC motors, so they made a lot of carbon dust and stuff, and you couldn't run real high voltage. And the batteries, I mean, we were putting lead acid batteries in the cars, and so they automatically weighed far more than they ever did as a gas vehicle. And it was a challenging time, and something that is so cool now that we've come to a point where just about every world automaker offers at least one model of electric vehicle. And now that they've been out, you know, the Tesla started selling the Roadsters around 2007 or 2008, and then Nissan and Mitsubishi with the Leaf and the iMeave came on around 2010 in the US. And so, gosh, now that's been 16 years we've got. And so plenty of these cars, and then the Model S's and other Tesla's Model 3s now. The Model 3 and Model Y are the most produced vehicles of any electric vehicle, and actually the Model Y in the world has been the most produced vehicle sometimes recently. And so there's so many of them out there, and they all have all these excellent parts that are OEM grade and water sealed. That was the other thing. Some of the parts we'd use in the old ones were designed by like electronics guys and not OEM car guys, and so the connectors weren't appropriate for necessarily for an automotive environment and such. So what's really neat is, and what I've been telling people now, you know, it also used to be super, super expensive. So my 1988 Pontiac Fiero that I converted, granted I used dual motors and stuff, I had about 30 grand into that thing. You know, and
20 years ago.
Yeah, and the specs of it today, as far as how far it would go and what it would do, well, granted it was pretty fast with the Zilla, but I mean, it pales in comparison. It didn't have regenerative braking and stuff. So we've really come a long ways where now, like, you can buy a used Leaf for $2,000, and it literally has all of the parts that you would need to do a conversion. So now it is not so much an engineering project of electrical engineering and figuring out CAN bus systems and how to make everything work together as it is about just packaging it. But then there's also other companies, as you'll see about in David's presentation, that offer solutions so that you can borrow from different parts and stuff. So this Subaru, this Subaru, I think, is really neat because I need to get some water.
You're getting choked up.
Yeah. We've come so far. No. I got something in my throat. But yeah, the Subaru conversion, I think this exemplifies what you can do on a budget and very quickly with the super high quality parts that we have now available from different OEM electric vehicles. And David will go into all the details, but it's a lot of Nissan Leaf parts and then others, and they're all very reliable and good and designed to be in a car. So why don't you take it away from there? Right here.
Get some goodies out here. If anybody wants, I brought some really cool keychains. I don't have enough for everybody, but they're from our college at St. Green River Keeping. But I brought probably 20 or 30 of them, so I'll put those out on the cart after a while. So, a little bit of background. Some of you have seen me before. I presented about our program at Green River College. Heck, it's been probably 4 or 5 months ago now. But some of you were not there, and so just a real quick background. In 2023, I worked for the college, Green River College. In 2023, I said, you know what? I love automotive, but I really like electric cars. I never had an electric car. Full disclosure, I had never even driven an electric car at that point. But I said, you know what? This is cool. And so I applied for some grants. And so we've gotten 3 grants now for just shy of $1.5 million that we've dumped into this program. And I've had the luxury of being able to go do some training, and I said, you know, I teach my students the only way that you can learn how something works is to take it apart, figure out how it works, put it back together, make it work, and what better way to learn how an electric car works than to actually build one. So we got the grant, we started buying some equipment and stuff, and then one day my wife came home and there was a 2016 Nissan Leaf in the driveway, and she was like, what in the heck is that? And so I said, I'm gonna do an EV swap, and she was like, okay. It wasn't the first time the random car showed up in our driveway. However, they have always been Subarus before this one, because I am very into the Subaru stuff for 25 years. I did just buy a Tesla for the first car that I've owned in 25 years. It wasn't a Subaru. So my son told me I need to put Subaru badges on it. So that might happen, I don't know. So anyway, on to the Subaru Legacy Swap. So this was a Subaru that I bought with a blown motor a handful of years ago, and I was going to throw a motor in it, flip it, sell it, make a couple of bucks to put into other projects, because that's what you do when you're a car guy, is you fund your fun projects with work. And well, I put the motor in it, and then I drove it for some time, and then I drove it for some more time until I finally bought another car, and then it just sat for a little while, and so I said, that's the car I can swap, because I already owned it. So, step 1, I bought a donor car. Now, my donor had a couple of criteria. I was going to do a Nissan Leaf. I had already decided that for a couple of reasons, which I'll talk about later, and you'll see some of the parts that I had seen, and I'm like, okay, that's a no-brainer, that's what we're gonna do. But I wanted 2013 and newer. I didn't want an 11 or 12 because of some of the obvious known issues. And I wanted a larger battery pack, which wasn't a deal killer, because with the VCU I used, I could use any battery pack I want. And I wanted one that was complete, and because none of y'all have met my wife, maybe sometime you will, but I couldn't bring something home that was just a complete wreck, because that wouldn't fly in the driveway. So I got on Copart. It is not the best buying experience to buy a car on Copart. You have to give them money to bid. It's not great. But I found one in Spanaway, so I could just drive up and pick it up with my truck. It was rear-ended, very light damage, so I knew all the components were good. It came with keys. I drove the car. I knew everything was good. I was able to charge the battery. It was a great donor car. I paid $1,800 plus auction fees, which worked out to be about $2,200. Okay, that's on the high end of a wrecked Nissan Leaf. I know that. I knew that going into it, but I knew it was a good car to start with. You can buy them much cheaper, but that's where we're at. I had already sourced out by looking even before I bought the car. I put step 2 because that's when I purchased these parts. There's a company up in Canada called Brack Industries. It's a Subaru guy, started with Subaru Brack. He makes adapter plates, so it goes directly from the Subaru transmission bell housing to the Nissan Leaf. We'll call it a bell housing, that's the motor. And it was just bolt up, plug and play, easy peasy. I didn't have to make it. I've gone down the adapter plate route before because I also have a Subaru with the turbo 350 transmission in it. It's a drag car, so but it runs on E85, so it's also environmentally friendly. That's a topic for another discussion. Right. Anyways, in the middle there is the coupler that went to the Nissan Leaf motor, so it was splined. It was not splined on the other end, so that was a whole other adventure trying to find a machine shop that would cut splines for me, which if you have ever worked in machining, that is not, internal splines apparently are not the easiest thing to do. But I found one local in Renton that did it for me. Down in between the two, that's what's called a Suba spool. That came from, well, I can't remember, I think it's Australia. It's either Australia or New Zealand. That makes the Subaru transaxle front-wheel drive only. So I take the center differential out and put that in, so it's front-wheel drive only. Now, why front-wheel drive? Right now, I could have kept it all-wheel drive. I could have kept the drive shaft in, could have kept all-wheel drive. However, efficiency, better without all-wheel drive. I'm not taking it up in the snow. I have another vehicle for that. I'm going to drive it to and from work, right? I don't know that I can get to snow and home without charging it. So I went front-wheel drive. In phase 2, that I'll talk about at the end, I plan on relocating the batteries into where the fuel tank was and where the spare tire well was. So therefore, I would no longer be able to run a rear differential. So it was kind of preemptive. And then I used the Resolve ECU out of Sweden. Unfortunately, you'll see in my cost breakdown, I bought that in the height of all the tariffs, so I paid a 34% tariff on a $1,000 computer. So yeah, that was unexpected because there was nothing on the website about it, nothing on anything. I bought it, I got it, it was $1,000. I'm playing with it, I'm doing my thing, and then I get a bill from FedEx for $335. It's like, I'm like, do I pay this or do I just say screw it? Like, then I'm like, oh, you guys don't know me real well, but I had a little bit of an internal struggle, but I had to just pay it, right? Like, I didn't want any relapse or anything coming about later, and it's 2 weeks after that, the tariffs were gone. But, anyways, and I did cheat a little bit. I typically, on all my other, I've done many internal combustion engine motor swaps, and I've always built my own wiring harnesses and things. I did cheat. I bought the wiring harness from Sweden. It was another $800-something, $820. But it literally made this swap plug and play. So it was, the $800 was worth probably the 20 hours that I would have put into it. Step 3 was remove all the high voltage components. So I do have a small shop, I do have a lift, which does make it much easier. If you don't have that, you could do it without it, but I've done
Or Jackson Krubin.
Yeah. I am, like I said, I'm an automotive instructor, but I do a lot of side work at home, or I guess I used to do a lot more than I do. So I do have a lift, which does make it a whole lot easier. So I dropped the motor out the bottom, pulled the battery out the bottom, I pulled the PTC heater, I pulled the air compressor, I pulled anything that was high voltage out of the car. Then I put the car all back together. I sold what I could off of it easily. I have a friend at work that I convinced he also needed a Nissan Leaf.
He wanted the alloy wheels because this one was an SD, so it had all the leather, had the nice wheels. So he bought the wheels from me. He bought all the leather interior from me and the rear cargo cover area. So I made a couple of bucks off of it. And then I sold the shell because mine was rear-ended in the rear. I sold it to a guy that bought another one off of Copart that was rear-ended in the front. But everything on the front of mine was still good. The radiator was still in there. The AC condenser was still in there. I didn't need the AC condenser because I used the Subaru AC condenser. And so he was happy to give me money for it. Step 4, make sure everything works. And so I'll see, doesn't look like there's any volume, so I'll narrate this. I've got the battery sitting on the floor, the motor stack sitting on the floor, the VCU plugged in. In my hand there is the gauge that shows the battery percentage. You can see on the dash I've got 14 volts, so the DC to DC converter is working. And then you can kind of hear a little bit. The accelerator pedal is off the screen there a little bit, and so I use the Nissan Leaf accelerator pedal. And so the motor spins, regen works, made sure everything worked on the floor before I put it in the car. If you've done anything like this, you can hear the motor spinning a little bit. The volume's up super loud.
Oh yeah.
All right, and so if there was any problems, it's a whole lot easier to diagnose it on the floor there where your wiring harness is all out. You can get your multimeter in, you can do what you need to do. And so
a good time to also just announce, if you're converting a car, it is quite ideal to start with a car that runs already, because then you can also sort when it's a gas or diesel car, do all the lights work, do the gauges, and then when you convert it, if anything doesn't work, you knew if it's something that you did or if it just didn't work to begin with. If you start with something that, you know, oh, blown engine, I got it, yeah, then you may be in for a whole bunch of headaches that were not even anything you did.
I started with 2 cars that ran and drove into my shop. One got pushed out or set down onto my trailer, and the other drove out. So it was, and like I said, I know I paid a little bit more than I probably needed to for the Nissan, but I got what I wanted. And even still, it's not crazy amount. So step 5 was remove the engine. I did not know I was going to give a presentation, so I did not take pictures of that. This was a Google image, but it is a Subaru Legacy. I'm not real good at documenting what I do. I've gotten a little bit better because I do post some pictures on Instagram and Facebook because other people ask me questions. But when I work, I want to just get stuff done. So I kind of put the blinders on and just make stuff happen and get stuff done. So step 6, install the motor. So the motor went in and out of the car multiple times because I had to make motor mounts, I had to make a cross member. When I first started installing everything, I did not have that special coupler that makes the input shaft of the transmission connect to the output shaft of the motor. So I did have to go in and out a few times. You can see the power steering was already connected. This was actually when it was coming out, but I'm going to say it was when it was going in for the presentation's sake. But I just used a cherry picker for the internal combustion engine, dropped it down in there, lined everything up, and it was pretty simple. As Stephen mentioned earlier, with using OEM components, it is very convenient. You don't have to do a lot of engineering, but you do have to do some fabrication still, because obviously the motor mounts aren't going to just line right up. So there's a little bit of minor engineering, a little bit of minor fabrication. Step 7, install the inverter and high voltage wiring. I do have a 3D printer, so I was able to 3D print some of my little brackets and pass-throughs where I went through metal, so there is no possibility of shorting of those high voltage. 396 volts going to chassis ground can cause some isolation faults, which, if you want to learn more about isolation faults, if one of those wires shorts to your chassis ground, everything is fine. If 2 of those short, now we have problems. And when I say everything is fine, I just mean there's no safety risk, but you will set trouble codes and VCUs will shut things down. But you can touch positive or negative, you just can't touch positive and negative.
Another advantage of using an OEM battery pack is generally there is some type of a IMD, isolation monitoring device, or
inside,
means built into it already. And if you build everything yourself, then you have to buy one of those and wire it up and figure out.
Or as many people do, not buy one of those, and then you have no safety, which is not necessarily recommended. So I did buy a double zero gauge wiring EV West. Best price I could find on large wiring, like large cable wire, whatever you want to call it. Step 8, I know it's cheeky, but I think the charge port should go in the fuel port, which led me to my first problem when I went to start it up. It wouldn't start up because I had cut that charge port because I needed to extend it. And I had the AC lines reconnected and heat shrinked and everything isolated, but I did not put my proximity and pilot connections. And if those are not connected, nothing will turn on, which is, now that I think about it, why my car wouldn't start up. I couldn't get the display to turn on because I plugged the 1772 plug into it, and so it won't turn on. So if we plug that, then I can turn on so I can go home. But yeah, we had to charge that. The car does have CHAdeMO, so I can do 30 amp DC fast charge. If one, you can find a CHAdeMO station, and two, what's that?
30 kilowatt.
30 kilowatt, yeah. 30 kilowatt, which is today's standard, still pretty slow, but for mid 2010s, that was not bad. So I did do some isolation testing. Quick nerd fact, Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 305 says specification must be 500 ohms per volt. The Leaf is 396 volts times 500 ohms. I need 198,000 ohms of resistance between my high voltage cables and my chassis ground. I measured it out with the Fluke 1597 insulation tester at 550 million ohms, which is maxed out. That's as high as it'll go, which means no loss of isolation. So we did that positive, negative. I was pretty confident we didn't have any problems, but why not check it, right?
That's a good Fluke meter to get if you're planning on doing EV stuff, because it has the ability to check isolation as well as the other normal voltmeter stuff.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a nice voltmeter, might as well get one like that.
It does the high voltage and the
Fluke has been around for a long time.
yeah, and they're local, so they're good to send you money to. So then we had some accessories. I talked with a couple people about that. The Subaru has hydraulic power steering, and now that I don't have an internal combustion engine to spin the belt, to spin the hydraulic pump, we no longer have the ability to do that. So I looked into doing an electronic power steering rack. Subaru has electronic power steering racks on all their newer stuff. And then I thought, man, that's a whole lot of extra work, and I'd have to buy a rack. Racks are expensive. I'd have to find a way to program it. So then on the internet, because the internet's great, kept popping up with this Volvo C70 hybrid power steering pump. It's a 12-volt electric motor that spins the hydraulic power steering pump. It does draw amperage. It's can base, but if you don't connect any CAN signals to it, it just runs in limp mode. There's some internet debate on what percentage it runs at, but I can tell you on a Subaru, it runs at the perfect percentage. And I put an amp clamp on it, and it draws about 11 amps under normal. Now, when you put it under a load or something when you're driving it, it may increase, but under full 100% spin, it does draw a lot more. And then for brakes, I use the iBooster, which if you do some internet research, that seems to be the go-to. I found one on eBay, and this one was out of a Honda CR-V, because for whatever reason, if it's out of a CR-V, it's meter to 12 millimeter, just little brass adapters. And then I did have to weld the Subaru clevis to the pedal to the correct size nut to make it fit. But other than that, it was 90% plug and play. So that won't be the case in all vehicles, but Subaru and Honda use the same size. And then we get to take it for a drive.
First move out.
So this is my first backup.
Out of the way.
Oh.
There. So this was just pulling out of the garage.
Yeah. There we go. There we go. Yeah.
That was an exciting moment. I know it seems pretty anticlimactic on the video, but it was cool to back it out. And I mean, I had it on the lift and I had ran the wheels and stuff to make sure everything kind of worked, but just to back it out and to take it for a drive around the neighborhood was cool, right? It's quiet, it makes all the EV sounds, and before it had a fairly loud motor in it, and now it doesn't, so it's different. It is lowered, it's got cheap coilovers on it, it's a pretty rough ride, but
is it fun?
it is fun. It
That's
is
all
fun to
that
drive.
matters.
So does it have the noisemaker in it?
No,
Nice.
no, it doesn't. I actually pulled the reverse chime out of the Leaf. The reverse chime on a Leaf is CAN bus control. I thought it was just going to be power and ground, but it is not. It is CAN bus control. And there is no way I'm going to do any amount of work just to make my car annoying.
Yeah.
So,
What's a CAN bus?
so that's computer network communication. So controller area network, CAN. So it's sending data packets instead of just sending it positive and negative signal. So I thought it was just going to be, had a constant power and you sent it a ground, or the other way around, and it made an annoying sound when you put it in reverse. But no, it is CAN controlled. So I still have it. That's it. The stuff that I have left to do, obviously you see it does run and drive. I started on this project on April 1st was when I pulled the motor out of the Leaf, and I drove it to work on May 30th. And so it was,
That's impressive.
I think, and much of that time was waiting for things. It took me 2.5 weeks to get the coupler back from the machine shop. And obviously I'm on their time because they were doing it for me, and they kind of did it as a favor because one of the guys that I work with, our machine instructor, used to work there, and so he was like, oh yeah, go talk to him. They never told me how much it was going to cost. I just dropped it off thinking, because I talked to Brad, our instructor, and he's like, it's not going to be cheap to do a one-off whatever. And so I'm like, okay, are we talking less than $1,000? And he was like, oh yeah, probably $600 or $700. And I'm like, that sucks, but okay.
What's the name of the shop?
I can't remember.
It's
a,
Cyclo.
It's right across the street from Kent Valley, or Snow Ice and Renton Highlands. But it's a small family-owned shop, and they have a machine that'll cut inside splines, which a lot of machine shops don't. They have to do it manually or make something work. But they did it for a very reasonable price. That's what I was saying. It was less than I was expecting, so I gave him enough of a tip to go buy some beer, and he was happy. Things I have left to do. I need to get heat working. Right now that's not an issue, so that's low on the priority list, even though I put it on the top. I've got a PTC coolant heater out of a Ford, not Escape, Ford Focus EV. But after going to the Greenwood Car Show and looking at a couple of other people's, I also saw when I was down at doing some training that Tesla's battery heater just uses power and ground, whereas the Ford pump uses CAN, or LIN, actually uses LIN for communication. So I'll probably end up buying a Tesla battery pump.
That is another thing to be aware of and do a little bit of research on if you're borrowing these OEM parts. Is, like you were saying, some of them have to have the CAN bus or LIN bus, which is basically data packets.
Computer communication.
Computer communication, and they may need to see specific messages that would have come from that car's computer, main VCU or stuff. And if you don't know what those messages are, now you've got a whole engineering project of figuring that out. For some items, people have already figured that out, and you can get an Arduino thing or something from GitHub, get the code for running, people have decoded it for some things, so that's worth looking into. But other ones, like you said, sometimes if you just give them the right power and stuff, they'll go into a dumber mode or just work. So it's worth finding out.
And luckily for us today, I wasn't doing this when some of you were. Today, there's a lot of people. When I mean a lot, we're not talking a lot, but there's enough. And there's groups like this all over the world, or all over the United States, and so there is information out there so you don't have to engineer everything yourself. Getting AC working, I've got it all plumbed. I had to put all new AC components because with the electric AC compressor you have to use POE oil, not PAG oil, because PAG is conductive, POE is not. And so when you're putting 400 volts into that compressor, if you put conductive oil in it, you end up with an isolation fault and you don't go anywhere. So instead of trying to flush everything out, because it's a 25-year-old Subaru and you can get components pretty cheap, it was like $200 to buy all of the components for the AC system. I did not put that in my spreadsheet for how much things cost. But, and then another thing, if you looked at it right now, I literally took the full Nissan Leaf battery and put it in the back of the station wagon. That is not where it will live forever. It does work, but I do want to break the battery down into 2 smaller packs and ultimately put one kind of where the fuel tank was, and then the other where the spare tire was. I will continue to use the Nissan Leaf batteries. I may try to use a larger pack, but with the VCU that I use at this point, there is no other BMS that will communicate with it for the batteries. The guy that makes the VCU has said on his website or on the forum that they are looking at making it communicate with an Orion BMS, and if they do that, that would be fantastic, because then I could change the battery configuration if needed. But that is electrical engineering stuff, which is way above my comfort level or engineering skills.
And the other really cool thing, the Nissan Leaf is unique among electric vehicles in that it has an air-cooled battery pack. So when it comes, that's one of the reasons it doesn't fast charge as quickly, I think, and where they early on had some battery degradation issues and stuff.
But there's no liquid cooling, there's no refrigerant that goes through it.
So for a conversion, it is literally, there's like 48 of those little, I call them sardine cans, because that's kind of what they look like, although they're a lot bigger.
Yeah,
but
there's 12 across the back and then 6 on each side.
Yeah, and there's a hole in each corner. So you just stack them up with all thread, like if you take them out of the pack or something, they're almost like Legos, you can build them up. So really good for doing an easy conversion.
And they're available because there's been lots of Nissan Leafs sold, and they're not crazy expensive. And if you contact wrecking yards, they don't know what to do with them. So they are happy when you buy them from them. So I went up north and bought 2 for $300 for 2 packs. So, and then they threw in a Ford Escape pack for free. So I came home with 3 battery packs for $300. So, and he was telling me after we agreed that I was going to pay him $300, he complained that they have a hard time getting rid of them. They don't know what to do with them. They found a company in California that will take them, but they cost $300 each to get rid of. And so I'm like, you should be paying me to take these. I shouldn't be paying you. But that was after we had agreed. So here's my spreadsheet. I know it's hard to see, but at the top there it says leaf purchase was $1,800. The taxes and fees are down in the bottom with my taxes and tariffs. The second one was my Subaru donor. I bought it for $800. My Brack Inks part was about $1,700. The Resolve ECU and wiring harness was about $1,900. And then all the miscellaneous parts was about $1,000. I sold $1,450 worth of parts. Total project about $6,000. Now, there are a number of little miscellaneous things that I didn't include. Like I said, some of the AC stuff. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, I did all the little parts. So I sold the body for $500, the wheels for $200, the interior for $300, the engine out of the Subaru for $300, the center differential for $150, and then so some of the things, if you notice, on top of the Nissan stack, the charger would sit on top of the inverter. Well, if I did that, I wouldn't be able to run a hood, or I'd have to have a big 60s style Cal inductive hood, which I wasn't prepared to do. So I just moved it to the back. And so inductive inverter or inductive auto sells a billet aluminum piece that goes right on the bus bars that stick up, so you can torque everything down with your large gauge wire and run your wire back to your charger and put your charger wherever you want. They also make one if you need to move the inverter off of the motor and run it in a separate location. And so they're not cheap, it's $165, but it's a billet aluminum piece that's made in the United States. It's not going to be cheap. So it's not a piece of cast aluminum or plastic or anything like that. It's a pretty good quality.
Dude, in this day and age, $165 is cheap.
That's cheap, yeah. But somebody was asking about the Volvo power steering pump. I paid $215 for that. It is kind of a knockoff off of eBay. It's not an OEM Volvo unit. The iBooster I paid $140 for. The power steering pump wiring I paid $100. I could have used the cut leads and soldered some wires on. I paid a couple extra bucks to get the factory connector with about 10 feet of wire, so I could run them all the way back to the battery with no voltage drop, no butt connectors, no soldering, anything like that. So very much a budget build. Even if you don't account for anything that was sold, about $7,500 into the total build. So pretty reasonably priced, I think. Here's a nice little fuel savings chart, which you guys that drive EVs, I don't need to explain this, but this is based on 30 miles a day, 10,920 miles a year. The car that I was driving before this got about 18 miles to the gallon, 607 gallons of fuel at 553.9, because that's what I looked up in Washington State for premium, is $3,361 a year in gasoline. When I've checked the miles per kilowatt on this, it ranges a little bit, but it's about 3.25. And with PSC, I'm paying 15 cents per kilowatt, about $500 a year to drive the same number of miles. Full disclosure, I don't drive that many miles. Yearly savings of $2,800, which means the break-even point to pay for this conversion is 2 years and 1 month to pay for it. Okay? That's how I explain it to my wife. So, and that's counting the cost of both cars. Now, if you really wanted to get into the nitty-gritty, you could say, well, you have to have a car anyways, and to buy a perfectly good running and driving 2000 Subaru is going to cost you about $2,500, so you can actually cut that down even lower. You know how statistics work. We can make them say what we want, but I'm just taking the amount of money that came out of my pocket to go into this project. If I drove it that many miles a year, 2 years it pays for itself, okay? Now, there's no government in here, right? If you do a conversion, my insurance company insures it as a 2000 Subaru. If you have an EV, you're going to pay a little bit more for insurance. I don't have to pay, what is it, $275 a year on top of your registration on an EV for gas tax?
$225.
$225, there you go. I don't have to pay that either, so.
Yeah, because it's saying you'd have to add that to your.
Technically, in Washington State, it's a bummer thing about our state. If you want to follow the letter of the law, when you convert a vehicle, it's very simple, although some DMVs don't know, and so they may give you guff or say it has to have a state patrol inspection. It does not. Tell them to call Olympia. But yeah, if you want to do it by the letter of the law and pay the state more money, then you go down and they will just simply change on the title from a G for gas or a D for diesel to E for electric, and then you will have to pay that $225 every year annual fee no matter how much you drive it. But
if I got benefits like I could drive in the HOV lane or something.
Right, we don't get any of that. So.
And if you want to learn more about electric vehicles, you can come see me at Green River College. We are starting an electric vehicle training in September. It's Monday and Wednesday nights. I've got some flyers up here if there's anybody that's interested. It's a 6-credit class. It ends up being about $1,000. So it's not crazy expensive. It's 88 hours, and we go over all of the different components, how they work together. And for those of you that saw the switch car at Greenwood, we actually build that car, which has all of the components that you would need to do an electric car conversion. It is kind of simplified because you don't have to build your wiring harness. You do have to connect everything, but you don't have to build it.
Do you have to bring like gloves and stuff like that, or is that all?
No, fun fact, I will give you a pair of brand new unopened high voltage gloves as part of the class because I don't believe in communal PPE. So yeah, so everybody gets a brand new pair of gloves.
How about that meter? Do We all get meters?
No. But we do have isolation meters. We do have milliohm and megaohm meters, and we have all the tools that we get to play with and learn how to use it. So.
Did I understand correctly that you did this conversion primarily to learn how to do it so you could teach your students?
Correct. Correct.
And was it because you would learn more about EVs in general by doing a conversion compared to if you just took apart the Leaf and rebuilt it as a Leaf?
Yes, and I wanted to do it. So there was that part of it also. But yes, because I've taken a lot of components off. At the school we have a number of EVs and I've played with them. I've taken them apart, I pulled the batteries out, I put them back in, I've done the things. But knowing how everything is connected together and how everything communicates, just doing it, I think, is a little bit deeper.
So on your Subaru, is there a concern because you've got, battery in the back, like you got an accident or something, like you catch or...
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do have some 1/4-inch brackets that are bolted into where the factory seat belt's bolted, so I figure that's at least somewhat reinforced. And it's probably not doing any good, but I did take the actual seat belts and wrap around it. Full disclosure, I did not drive it here because I don't want to take it on the freeway. I have taken it on the freeway just between my house and work, but I go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and there's nobody on the freeway. But that is a legitimate concern that I do have, because if I was on the freeway at 60 miles an hour and got rear-ended and that battery came into my back, it wouldn't be a big deal. And so I figure at 35 miles an hour, which is what I normally drive to and from work, I probably am not going to get hit that hard. But yeah, I trailered it here and I parked it the closest place I could park a 45-foot trailer. Well, truck and trailer. But.
So I remember back in the days, Steve was running classes.
Yeah.
One of the recommendations was not to have any battery behind the rear axle. Same reason that Pintos, that gas tanks are always now in front of the rear axle.
Except on a Subaru.
And also,
well, I guess they are kind of on pop-up.
Yeah, but it's still, you still don't have any behind the rear axle.
Yeah, because you have your crumple zone in the back.
Exactly. So when you do conversions, is that still best practice to not have anything behind the rear axle, or you just use the space you have?
Ideally, yeah. I mean, and the challenge, of course, is that's why like pickup trucks or stuff are some of the easiest to convert because you got a lot of real estate. If you're converting something like the Z3 or the Fiero, that's also more difficult even than a Subaru wagon or something. So the type of vehicle that you convert can make it challenging because the energy density of batteries, even using the best lithium batteries, is so much worse than gasoline that
it takes
you
up a lot
have
of
to fit them
space.
in where you are, and you're starting with a car that was not built from the ground up as an EV, so you're having to shoehorn and fit stuff in. But yes, if you can, highly recommended that the battery, both for weight distribution and handling, you want to put the majority of the weight in any car if you can, and that's one neat thing about EVs. With a internal combustion engine, depending on what the engine is, you got a big block of aluminum or iron that is a big mass that you can't take apart. The battery pack, while it weighs a lot, like a Leaf pack is about 650 pounds, yeah. But you could distribute that a little bit or put it all down low if you can. But yeah, you want to try and keep it out of the areas where it might get hit, and the closer to the floor and the closer to the center in all dimensions laterally, the safer and the better for handling.
That's why if you look at the Tesla, the Chevy, the Volt down there, the Leaf, all the batteries are under the floor pan. They're using a fairly thin battery, but they're building the car around the battery, not building the battery around the car. And so, yeah, in a perfect scenario, you would be building it like, was it the International, where they're building a frame around that battery to make that Model 3 battery fit, and then bolting the truck on top of it. So, but in a perfect world, I looked into cutting my floor pan out and putting the full Nissan Leaf battery under it, but it didn't seem like that was a logical use of my time for a Nissan Leaf drivetrain.
Just want to say the international build is really slow and really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
one trick if you are cramming batteries anywhere you can fit the vehicle, like in Zion over there, is you can get a class 2 or class 3 trailer hitch, or you use a class 1 to pull out of the frame, to provide a little extra rigidity behind the axle there, and the battery there.
Yeah. And a lot of cars too will have aftermarket options depending on the vehicle for like front strut tower braces to go between the front strut towers and things. Any little things like that you can do to rigidify the whole chassis helps.
Yeah.
It is important to just note, I mean, if you're converting a car, you are taking on risk, and especially the more modern the car is too, if you've got like the airbags and everything that were designed to be in there, it actually, you might not want to use the airbags from your Model 3 or something as the donor vehicle, because the manufacturer went through a whole bunch of engineering to make sure that those airbags are not going to kill you, although even so, really lightweight people or kids sometimes are killed by airbags. But now, so some of that stuff, then you want to not use actually the airbags as a general rule, but all this stuff, like the more you start messing around with it and you're putting in different things, you didn't do all the engineering or the crash test with crash test dummies, so you are taking on some risk, and that is part of it. But
yeah, and one of the nice things with using the chassis that I did, with it being a 2000, the airbags and the anti-lock brakes are completely standalone. So even without the engine, without the ECU, they still work. So I still have functioning airbags, functioning anti-lock brakes. And I can tell you, the first time I had to stop in a fairly quick hurry in the rain, I was glad I had anti-lock brakes, because that car does not stop as well as it used to with that 650-pound battery inside of it.
Will your students be doing conversions? And if so, is it mainly for their learning, or do you see conversions as a big thing for the automotive mechanic professionals of the future, and for transitioning people onto, as drivers, onto electric cars?
So I honestly believe that conversions are really more going to be for hobbyists. I don't think there's going to be a large group of, I don't think there's going to be an industry where people are taking old cars and converting them to new car or to EVs, because it's not cost effective.
The one thing he left out of his spreadsheet was the labor.
I know, that's exactly
if he
what I was
wasn't
thinking.
doing it as a person,
that's why I said it's
knows
not
that.
cost effective. As an instructor, I get the luxury of going down to SEMA every couple of years, and they have an electric section in SEMA now, and it's fantastic. But if you look at the vehicles in there, there are companies that sell plug and play. I'm doing a plug and play conversion right now at the school with some students' help, but it's not necessarily part of our curriculum. It's kind of an extracurricular activity. You guys just saw, I've got $6,500 into this car. The RX-8 that I'm building, I've got over $110,000 into.
Oh.
Okay? And it doesn't work yet. Oh. So it's not cost effective necessarily to do on a large scale. For like a company to say, we're going to go out there and buy up all of XYZ cars and we're going to convert them to electric. It would be pretty costly.
But basically, that's what Ford and all those guys did. They took ICE vehicles and they tried to like.
That's true. Do some research on Ford and look how much money they lost on their EV program. But they were willing to invest in that for long-term returns, which a large company, a multi-billion-dollar company, can do that. My bank account's not that deep, so.
No, because Hyundai got smart. They finally started building cars specifically for EV.
And if you look, even like the cars that were built electric from the beginning really just are better cars than the cars that, like, because as a technician, having worked on cars for the last 25 years, if you pop the hood and start looking at, like, no offense to anybody that drives a Chevy Bolt, because they are great cars, but the engineers that designed that were not electric car engineers. There are a lot of very much automotive internal combustion design put into that car. But that said, it is still a pretty decent car for what they cost.
Yeah, that is one other thing I find interesting. You look at some of the vehicles like Rivian or Tesla, where it's a brand new company, and they've all got really nice fronts, and Rivian has that gear storage area and stuff, but like every single Tesla has a front. And I guess maybe not the Roadster, which was at first. That didn't have so much, but it didn't have much of anything because it was a little sports car. But all the others have a front. You look at a Nissan Leaf or a Kia Soul EV or
Chevy Bolt.
Yeah, the Chevy Bolt, and it was an automaker. Like, well, under the hood, you have all these components in the motor and everything, and it just sits there. And it's like, yeah, but you wouldn't have to. And so it's interesting in my view of seeing the way that some of the newer tech-ish companies that started as an EV company treat the clean slate.
The engineers work differently.
Yeah. Well, like the Subaru Uncharted, like brand new car, right? There's no front. There's nothing to tell you like how much left you have in your car. You have to go through an app. It's like, seriously, we're in 2026.
Now, being in education, I love the Chevy Bolt for education because all the parts are right there. I can point them out, I can pull them out, I can do everything. The Nissan Leaf, everything is right there. We have a Mach-E. I love the car, but it's horrible for education because you can't see anything without spending 15 minutes pulling stuff off.
So that's a good segue. A few things. You'll see with this, the deal that their program is, I mean, I can't stress what a good deal that is. Like also when we do the conversion classes, like when we converted Charlie's car and stuff, when we do the week-long conversion class, that was about as much money as your whole program. So it's a good deal, and it's local here and really good stuff. But how many people here have seen the Weber State YouTube channel?
With John Kelly?
Yeah.
It is.
If you haven't, look it up. Weber State EV on Google or YouTube. It is worth your time. He goes through all sorts of OEM electric vehicles and takes all the pieces apart and labels them and explains it. It's really cool.
And what's it called again?
Weber State University.
Okay, yeah, I can remember that.
Yeah.
David's gonna explain. He just went down there for a trip.
Yeah, so I feel like they're kind of a competitor of mine, but they're so far away. If you really want to go down to Weber State, I can't say enough about it. It is hands down the best electrical training class that I've been to, and I've been to probably 5 of them in different states. I've been to Arizona, I've been to New Jersey, I've been to California, I've been to Washington. And because of the grants that I've been able to get, I've been able to use that money to pay for travel, to pay for me to go to whatever training I want to or can. And Weber State is one that I just really wanted to go to because John Kelly, the professor there, is fantastic. Very, very knowledgeable person, has spent many, many hours. It's at a university, so he gets paid to write papers and make YouTube videos, whereas at a community college, I don't get to do that. I get to do that for fun on my own time because I like to do it. But I do have the luxury of having the ability to do it as well. So if you're interested in doing their program, it is fantastic. I'm going to go over, I was down there last month while you guys were having your meeting. I wasn't here because I was down there.
Where's down there?
It's in Layton, Utah, just north of Salt Lake by about 40 miles north of Salt Lake City. So it is a university. They have their own, battery electric vehicles, plug-in electric vehicles, and some hybrid vehicles. And so you go over all of the different things. As far as batteries, they had about 20 different batteries that we got to open up. We didn't take anything apart, but we were able to open them up and identify the different components inside of them and play with them. And again, they have batteries from plug-in hybrids, and full battery electric vehicles, so you can look at the similarities and differences between them. And there are still some manufacturers that are still using nickel metal hydride batteries even today. Toyota is still using some nickel metal hydride batteries today, which was interesting to find out. And then they also have all of the parts and components that you get to pick up and play with on the wall here. I know these images are kind of small, but on the left-hand side you can see the full drivetrain out of a Model 3, Model Y, which are basically the same. All of the components laying out on the table that you can play with and pick up and touch and test. And then on the right-hand side there, they have the SX platform. It is an S, but similar to the X. Here's one for Mach-E, one for the Nissan Leaf. So they have both the 1112 style and the newer style. They don't have any of the brand new style.
And there you can see, like what he was talking about earlier, the stack up. When it's in a Nissan Leaf, Nissan did an excellent job of compactly putting everything in a big vertical stack because the Leaf's hood is pretty high. But what was so cool about the parts that he found from that other company, Inductive Auto, they'll allow you to then take the separate parts apart, and it can be good for a conversion where you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, that's with my formatting a little bit. So we got a Subaru Parallel Hybrid, which was their old Crosstrek. And then on the left, we've got some Chevy. I can't remember, it's not an older Bolt, but it's probably some of the newer stuff. I don't remember which model the Chevy stuff was. And then we got to take batteries apart, and that says Ford. Something happened with the aspect ratio of the computer or something. And then the one on the right is a plug-in RAV4. And so we got to take them all apart, open the lids up, and identify and see all the different components. And one of the things that John Kelly, if you watch any of his videos, you'll know he loves his Dynamo label maker. He's got everything labeled, which is fantastic, especially if you don't know what you're looking at. From an education standpoint, I want to take those off because I want students to be able to identify it based on what it is. But being able to see it, if I was doing this, having it there, and then taking it off, and then making the students after they've seen it would be fantastic. So Chevy Bolt, and then Prius plug-in, so the Prius Prime on the left there. The old Chevy Volt, which was a T-style, which was pretty neat, that, again, automotive engineers, not electrical automotive engineers, they put it right in the transmission tunnel and under the rear seats. So.
Because that was a plug-in EV, right?
Yeah, so it was a plug-in hybrid, yeah. So, and then these are the ones that we actually dropped out of the cars and pulled apart. We have a Chevy Bolt on the left, and then brand new Kia on the right. And so we were able to pull those batteries actually out of the cars and actually identify and see the bus bars and do some testing on them. They have a Toyota Mirai there, which is a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle.
And they have, I think, 1 or 2 in California, that's it?
There's, I don't know, if you go on Facebook Marketplace, there's about 1,000 of them for sale.
No, I'm just saying where you could actually fill them up.
The stations, that's why they're all for sale. Yeah. I actually thought, because what was going through my head, because that's how my brain works, I'm thinking, how cool would it be to go down and buy a Mirai, because you can buy them for $4,000 or $5,000, and then convert it to EV. They've got those huge, they've got all of the parts you need, and they've got those huge hydrogen fuel cells that are plenty big enough to put batteries in that same spot, and they're in safe locations because they were already built for accidents.
They were literally selling them for like $30,000 off MSRP.
They were giving a $15,000 free fuel gift card when you bought them. So, but just a rundown real quick, as Stephen was saying, theirs is broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 is 7 hours of online training, costs $375. Phase 2 is 21 hours, which is $725. And then the phase 3 is 35 hours, and it's $2,000 for 1 week. So you're looking at about $3,100 plus travel expense to get there and stay in a hotel for a week. So it's a great program. I'm not trying to say anything bad about it. I can't say anything bad about it. It is fantastic, but it's they don't get a lot of hands-on in anything. Really? So that's we got to see a lot of stuff. We got to pull some battery packs off, but the first 2 phases. Some of you that have seen his videos, the first 2 phases are a lot of those videos. Some of them that are not published on YouTube, some of them that are. And so some of them that aren't published on YouTube, he goes into a little bit more into some different things. But yeah, very knowledgeable, very, very fantastic class, very fantastic program. And then I threw this in here, and I already shared it with Stephen, but this is completely switching gears. We can come back if there's any questions. But I was down in Vancouver a few weeks ago, because that's where I bought my new Tesla. And I drove by this Anderson Lofts. It's a condo complex. And I saw the sign on their outside gate. It says level 2 EV charging with every unit. And so I had to drive in. Every single covered parking place has a jukebox level 2 48 amp charging station, a J70 and 72 charging station. It's a brand new complex, so they were able to do that. It wasn't retrofitted, but that's what we need in the future if we want to see more people buy EVs, because that's one of the big complaints is I don't have anywhere to charge it. And if you are always DC fast charging, you're not saving a whole lot of money, if any, on gasoline, especially if you're charging in the day where they're charging 60, 80 cents per kilowatt, which down at the Weber State class, some of the guys from California laughed when we said we were DC fast charging for 53 cents. They were like, that's what we pay at our house. Yeah. So
there's a company, if you read the book Inevitable, the messy history of EVs, I think they're out of Canada, and you can call them, like if you own an apartment or condos, and they will work with you to figure out how to set these things up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so the ultimate, I just bought solar panels and a battery backup for my house, so now I will be able to charge by the sun instead of by PSC, which is cool. So
and that you can not only, what a great model for everybody. Imagine if everybody powered their own car from the sun that falls on their own roof, whether they like it or not. I mean, how great would that be?
Yeah.
But the other cool thing is the benefit to you, even if you don't care about the environment or any of that, is you lock in your electricity rate. If you're making your own fuel, then it doesn't matter what else is going on. You're fueling your own car with your own fuel.
Can you sell it back to PSC?
You can. We have net metering right now. My wife was not on board with solar unless we had batteries, which makes sense, and I wasn't going to argue with her. Yes, it costs more, but the beauty of having batteries, we're doing 40 kilowatts worth of batteries, and so we consume what we're consuming during the day, and the day when you don't need as much power, it's charging that 40 kilowatt battery, and then we can draw from that 40 kilowatt battery into the evening and hopefully never have to use any electricity. And once that 40 kilowatt battery is filled, then the meter spins backwards and we sell it back to PSC for 15 cents per kilowatt. What's that? I'm putting 20 450 watt panels. So do the math. I haven't done the math. All right, I have the documents.
9,000?
So 9 kilowatts, just to get thereabouts.
Better part of, I don't know how big your house is, but better part of the year you're going to be doing the benzene.
Yeah, and so I, not an advertisement, but I went through a company called Portable Sun, and I paid an engineer to design it, and I will be installing it myself, but they design it, they use LiDAR roof scan to look at your roof and figure out where the best southern exposure is, and then they send you all the documentation, and then they send you all the engineered drawings and everything that you use to get your permits.
Oh shit.
So,
yeah. 450 panels times 20, or 450 watts times 20 panels is 9 kilowatts.
Yeah.
Or not, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And so they're bifacial panels, so so they're fairly efficient, and it's expandable too. So I have more roof, so when more money falls out of the sky, I can add 5 or 10 more panels too if I find that I need more. Question?
Has anyone done or bought those balcony solar systems that you just plug in? They don't have a battery. You just plug them into your outlet,